So, I am injured. Alright, it turns out when you run 50 miles in one go, there's often a high chance something might go wrong. And it would appear something did go wrong when I ran my ultramarathon back at the beginning of October. It's not all doom and gloom, it's not horrifically major yet or anything, so I'm just going to go over in this video what's wrong, how I think it came about, what I think the causes were, and how I'm dealing with it. Okay, so the problem is IT band syndrome. This is a really common injury in runners because as a runner, you're doing a lot of repetitive motions. Cyclists can get it as well. The IT band is essentially this kind of band of ligamentous tissue that runs from the hip to the knee, in simple terms. Its full name is the iliotibial band because it runs from the ilium to the tibia. So the band is kind of the whole thing. The top bit of it does have another fancy scientific name, but I'm not going to bore you with all of the details like that. It's basically, the whole band is essentially where some issues can originate in runners. So the top bit of the band and running down towards the knee is really thick, and then it gets thinner as it gets towards the knee, and people will often have knee pain when they have IT band syndrome because it's that like thinner bit at the bottom of the band that essentially, in simple terms, rubs and twangs on the bone pretty much. When you're doing kind of exercises where you're bending and straightening your knee a lot or extending and flexing your knee a lot, you can end up with the IT band rubbing on the bone and stuff around that area. Naturally, when something rubs on something a lot inside your body, you're going to get pain. So I've been experiencing some kind of pain a little bit in the right side of the knee, sort of a little bit behind it, and kind of just above on the side as well. So exactly where the IT band is, I have experienced a bit of pain there as well. So that's kind of the problem. Some knee pain in the IT band and around the knee itself for me, which gets in the way of running. It does start to hurt quite a bit if I run more than a certain length of time. Now, how do I think this came about? One thing I have noticed looking back at some footage of the race itself, if you feel like you want to go watch the race documentary, I'll link it up there, is that while I'm running in some of those clips, particularly in the later clips from further on in the race, my core and glutes kind of don't look very engaged. I'm not asking you to go stare at my bum in a video, but it does look like my glutes aren't very engaged, which would mean that more pressure was being put on the hip flexor at the front. So another thing about the IT band is that the two muscles kind of towards the top of your leg that connect to the IT band are your tensor fasciae lata and the gluteus medius. So they basically attach either side of it. So if your tensor fasciae lata, which is basically your like hip flexor essentially, if that's pulling on the IT band more than the glute medius, then it's going to like drag it in one direction more than it's supposed to, which is the sort of thing that will happen if your glutes are not engaged. Now, a lot of people have a glute medius that isn't as strong as it possibly should be, so that's probably something that I need to sort out. My glute medius is possibly a bit too weak, and I also just need to pay more attention to my running form, because if my core isn't engaged, then my running form isn't particularly balanced, and it could mean that my left leg perhaps isn't doing enough work, so my right leg's overcompensating, and all kinds of like bits and pieces like that. So I think it's a combination of my left leg not doing enough work and my right leg overcompensating for it, and also my tensor fasciae lata doing more work than my glute medius. So that front muscle is pulling more than the back muscle and creating an instability in the IT band. So that's generally what I think has gone wrong. So I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, I haven't been to a doctor to diagnose it because the world's still kind of crazy, and I don't really want to waste doctors' times with something that I can work on myself. I am training to be a personal trainer and exercise referral instructor, so I'm learning about these things, and I should be able to diagnose these sorts of things myself and and kind of work towards fixing them. So I'm experimenting on myself a little bit and learning as I go. So this seems to be the most likely causes for the problem is that I have muscle instability in my left leg possibly, and my glute medius needs to be stronger and I need to have better form when running. So I had started to employ better form when I was doing a bit of running. So I took 3 weeks off after the ultramarathon, but because I didn't do any kind of I didn't do a little test run in that time, it didn't bring up any of the problems, so I didn't realise anything was wrong until I started running again. So first week back running, actually there was another thing that happened. I did a lifeguarding course, which was 5 days of course in which I spent 1.5 to 2 hours in the pool each day doing various things, which I think didn't help because that was in the 3rd week after the ultramarathon. There's not really anything I could have done about it. Life happens, you have to keep going, you can't just stop doing things because you ran 50 miles. But it probably didn't help that I did that much exercise after not really doing anything for 2 weeks and not really being recovered from the ultramarathon either. So yeah, that probably didn't help. But when I did my first run back, there was sort of a bit of a pain in my knee, but I didn't really think too much of it. And then I went to Wales for a weekend with my running club, and we did it was about a 3-hour run, I think, on the Saturday, in which my knee did start to hurt. But again, I just didn't really think enough of it. I was like, okay, that's hurting. And it was noticeable. I was running with one of the ladies I was running with did point out that my form was quite off, in the latter half of the run. So there was clearly something up. I just didn't really think anything of it because I was kind of sinking into a bit of a state of denial, I think. And then the next day, stupidly, I joined one half of the group who were going up Snowdon. So yeah, hiked up possibly the steepest way up Snowdon, and couldn't run at all once I got to the top. So I had to do quite a painful walk all the way back down the normal tourist track, which was really stupid, and I just basically shouldn't have done it. But when people are like, hey, we're going to go up Snowdon and you've not been up Snowdon before, it's very difficult to say no. That happened, and then came home. I did running that week actually. So I did a 1 hour run on that Wednesday, and I also went out for about an hour on the Friday with some knee pain, and then I did coaching on the Sunday. So I didn't go for a proper run, I just kind of went for a little bit of a jog with the under 11s that I help coach sometimes, and I was in a state of denial. There was something wrong. I didn't want to admit it because I just wanted to get back to running. I was super excited to get back to running and I was so ready for it, and I was just in a state of denial. So I ignored it, and then last Wednesday, I went for a run, and it hurt too much for me to really ignore it. It wasn't like unbearable, but I just thought this is not a good idea to let this go on as it is. So I decided I had to stop and do something about it. Okay, the plan that is in place. I am choosing to actively rehab just because I think if I go about it too passively, I will go insane. Exercise is pretty vital for my mental health. For anybody who's not aware, I have ADHD. It's fairly mild. I'm not medicated and I manage it through exercise, diet and a very, very strict sleep schedule. So if I don't exercise enough, things go downhill really quite quickly, which is problematic for me because other things then get impacted. My concentration goes, my memory goes, it affects my work, it affects my general quality of life. So exercise is pretty vital for me personally. My active rehab plan will, at point of completion, just be about over 4 weeks, a little bit over 4 weeks. So what I'm doing is essentially still doing the sessions that I would have run for, but I'm doing them on the cross trainer, or a combination of the cross trainer and the rowing machine is the plan. I had a couple of test runs at the cross trainer on Friday and Sunday to check that my knee felt okay and feels okay. There are today there was a little bit of discomfort when I did my session this morning, but I don't know how much of it was discomfort and how much of it was me being really paranoid about the pain. So I'm going to keep monitoring it. Obviously, if it doesn't go away and does actually still feel bad when I'm doing the cross trainer stuff, I'm going to have to try and think of a different route forward. But for the minute, the plan is to do all of my running sessions, just the time that I would have spent running. So whether it was an hour and a half, 2 hours, those will be on the cross trainer. So I'll keep building my aerobic base using the cross trainer, or I will switch between cross trainer and rower when the sessions get a bit longer, because I don't think I can cope spending 2 hours on a cross trainer. So we'll divide those sessions between the cross trainer and the rowing machine is the plan. I'll be increasing my strength training sessions from 2 sessions a week to 3. So I'll be keeping my normal weighted session where I do like deadlifts and squats and some other sort of weighted exercises. And then I'll do my normal bodyweight session I do, where I do things like, I'm working on Nordic curls at the minute, and reverse Nordics and bits and pieces, and knee over toe split squats, which might sound possibly like a bad idea, but I think they're actually going to be quite useful for me at the minute. So I'll talk a little bit more about my strength training routine, maybe in a later video when I cover how rehab has gone, what I've learned about the IT band during that time, and yeah, how well it's worked essentially. So that'll be in a later video. But I'm going to try these things. I'm going to do it for 4 weeks. So 4 weeks of no running. I will throw in a bit of swimming as well, I think, just to try and keep that aerobic base building, because I do have a mountain or moorland marathon in early March that I've signed up for that I really want to be in shape for. So I'm going to keep building the aerobic base, and then after 4 weeks we'll do a test run, and I'll either be able to keep training or I will be crying because I need to keep rehabbing. The third strength training session I'm planning to throw into the week is mostly focused around glute strength. So I'll be doing sort of glute medius targeted exercises, a few other things thrown in there as well, but there's going to be sort of 2 or 3 glute medius specific exercises in there to try and just work on that, get that a bit stronger. And then once rehab finishes, I will be doing those sorts of exercises more regularly in my general routine, just to keep that strength there and keep it building. We'll also be doing more yoga in the routine, which has been pretty helpful for me in the past, but I think I just need to zone in on it a little bit more. I do a bit of yoga after all of my runs anyway. Like, instead of a stretching session, I will do sort of 7 to 10 minutes of yoga. So I'm going to keep doing that after the cross trainer sessions, and on days where I'm not on the cross trainer or doing any kind of cardio, I will be doing like a longer yoga session just to try and keep on top of that and just try and keep things as healthy as possible, basically. In terms of foam rolling and massaging and stuff, I haven't really fully decided exactly how I'm handling that. I think I will start doing like a daily massage session on my tensor fascia lata and glute area. I think that's going to be useful and probably quite important, so I will be doing that. I'm probably not going to spend too much time massaging the IT band itself, maybe a little bit, because the IT band can like adhere to the structures underneath it sometimes, so giving it a little bit of a massage can just help release it a little bit. It's quite difficult to actually stretch the IT band, so most of what you're doing is stretching the muscles around it and trying to loosen it up a little bit so it doesn't sort of like attach itself to muscles and bones underneath it. So that would be the reason for doing any foam rolling or massaging on the IT band itself. But again, it's something that I'm not going to go too crazy on, because if something's inflamed, then massaging it isn't always a great idea. It might just make it worse. So yeah, I'm being quite cautious on massaging the IT band itself, but we'll be working on the muscles surrounding it. We'll also be making use of a compression strap, for which I've been using during my cross training session so far, and I'll just use it for if I go for a walk or anything like that. I'll pop it on just to try and help keep things in place and try and reduce any potential discomfort and pain that might occur. I feel a bit frustrated because I had some injury issues last winter, mostly because I dropped a camera on my foot and gave myself a bit of a stress fracture. So I wasn't really at the level of fitness in the spring that I wanted to be, and I really don't want to repeat of that this year. Like, I don't know how people manage to go multiple years with injuries. Last year obviously was not an injury through running really, it was an accident, which was unfortunate, and this year it is because I ran 50 miles, basically. So just going to keep trying to work on it and figure out and problem solve what I need to do. Everything else feels great. So it's just the IT band, and it is a really common issue with runners. I just really like at some point in the future to get a year without injury problems preventing me from doing the training that I want to do. So yeah, I'm going to keep working on that and problem solving it, and then hopefully at some point I will reach injury-free status. But you know, it's all work in progress, isn't it? Okay, I hope listening to me ramble about my injuries was useful in some way if you're suffering from an IT band problem as well. As I said, I will be doing a video a bit later down the line, probably towards the end of my 4 weeks of active rehab, where I will talk about what I've learned over the course of me attempting to actively rehab myself, and how it's gone, and whether I need to do things differently or whether I need to rehab more, etc. But yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, this might work. If you're interested in this sort of content or running content in general, I'm a trail runner and fell runner. So if you check back on past videos, you'll see the kind of thing that normally goes on here. And if you're interested in that, then feel free to hit subscribe. If you're not interested in any of that, then cool. Have a good day. Right, bye.